Good morning and good Erev Shabbos. Today we're learning the 23rd Perek of Shabbos. Today's shiur is sponsored Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachum Simcha Cohen, Yeshua Mordechai Ben Shepsel, Baruch Saba Shmuel Leah, Binyamin Moshe Ben Yosef, and Refuah Shlema for Ada Sarah Bas Leah, Chana Pesel Bas Yenta, Yisrael Ben Rachel Rachel Bas Pesel Zelda, Avram Yitzchak Ben Risha, and Chaya Bas Doba Bela. May they have a foolish limb of Beso Shachal Yisrael. And it's also the last day for the sponsorship from our friends at Everest Equity Group. They are the professionals in the mortgage space. If you're in the market for a new mortgage, please reach out to them. Wish them Shefa Bracha Vatzlacha in all their endeavors and for sponsoring the past 2 weeks of this year. If you're interested in being a sponsor for this year, please let me know. Okay, we have today is the 23rd Perek, and on Sunday we're learning the 24th Perek of Shabbos, and that is the end of Masechah Shabbos. I'm really gonna miss this Masechta. Because first of all, we've been able to be involved with Shabbos the entire month. Like every day we talk about Shabbos. If 6 days we're learning about Shabbos, and the seventh day we have Shabbos, and for the past 28 days, pretty much the month, we've been involved with Shabbos, Shabbos, Shabbos. That's an absolute murder kind of feeling. Also, the Perakim were shorter. Most of them were like three, four, five, six, seven Mishnayos. And you get into other Masechtas, the Perakim get a little bit longer. And Baruch Hashem, we have a month of Shabbos. It's unbelievable. And now we're wrapping it up on Sunday, starting Eruvin on Monday, which is also related to Shabbos, but it's a different Masechta. Okay, here we go. Perek Chav Gimel Mishnah Aleph. We're talking about borrowing food on Shabbos. The person may borrow pitchers of wine or pitchers of oil from his friend on Shabbos. Provided that he does not say to him, lend it to me. You can't ask for a loan. If the word loan is used, the word halveni is used, the lender will be unable to demand payment for a long period of time. Therefore, to prevent himself from forgetting the loan, he might record it and thereby perform the malacha of writing. Similarly, a woman may borrow loaves of bread from her friend, provided she does not say, Halveni, lend it to me. But if the lender does not trust the borrower to pay back, Maniach Taliso Eslo Vaose Imocheshbon the Achar Shabbos. And the borrower may leave his cloak or some collateral with the lender and make a reckoning with him after Shabbos. Listen, I'm borrowing from you this whatever it is, this challah, this bottle of wine, and I'm giving you my talus or my jacket or my hat, whatever. I'll come back after Shabbos and figure it out. And that way they can determine how much he owes him for the food that he borrowed. Similarly, if someone is in Yerushalayim and Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos and has not yet brought an animal, he's not yet bought an animal for his Pesach offering, he may leave his cloak as collateral with one who sells animals and take an animal for his Pesach offering, and then come back to the seller after Yontif on the first day of Chalamayid and determine how much he owes him for the animal. This thing with neighbors, most neighbors that I know of, if you're living in a community for many years, there's an understanding. Sometimes we're going to borrow from you, sometimes we're going to borrow from me, and then you get into a whole shadow with ribbis. So, the most preferred way to do this is to say, hey, can you spare some of this? Can you spare a bottle of wine for Shabbos? Or I got to run to the store, can you spare a bottle of wine? And okay, fine. And the next Shabbos, they're going to ask you for for a bag of grapes or some clementines or some other things, and you're not keeping tabs on your neighbors. Obviously, if it happens excessively, well, that's a different story. But if it's once in a while, where you're going to borrow a cup of sugar and they're going to borrow a cup of flour, and you just give it to them as a gift, and you create that like love between neighbors, is definitely a better way. But if it gets to a point where you have to keep a cheshbon and it's too excessive, then obviously, then make sure you follow the steps along the way. Um, anyways, my 2 cents. Mishnah Beis, Mona Adam as Orchav as Paprosa Bipiv. Person who invited guests to a meal and prepared delicacies for them may count his guests and his delicacies from memory. Avalom and Aksav. But he may not count them by reading from a written list, because he might erase items from the list, which is also to do on Shabbos. Like for example, if he sees that he has less food that is needed for all the guests on the list, he might erase some of their names, and then he would give the short list to his messenger, telling him to invite only the guests whose names have not been erased. If he is concerned that some guests might not arrive, he might erase them from his list or of delicacies. If he's concerned that some of those people that if he's concerned that some of his guests will not arrive, then he might delete some food items from his list so that they will not be prepared. So people who share a meal, sometimes they do a collateral to see who will get which portion. This is also on Shabbos, because people who feel the need to cast the lottery or raffle in order to divide their food are clearly particular about the size of portions that they receive. Therefore, there's a concern that they will measure the weights of the portions, which is also on Shabbos, and so we're learning over here that this issur does not apply when a person uses lots to distribute food items to the members of his household, when he does it for other people. Okay. One may cast lots at the table with his children and other members of his household to determine who will receive which portion. The reason why you're drawing lots in a family setting is not because they're particular about the size of the portions. Rather, it's simply the method that the Balabayas chose to make the distribution. Since they're not particular about the portions, they are unlikely to measure or weigh them. Therefore, the Chacham allowed drawing lots in this case. However, it is usher to draw lots from people who are not family members, because they might measure with the portions. This this only applies on Shabbos when you can't measure on Shabbos, but it's not applicable during the week. Okay, now we're going to learn about a situation where drawing lots for food is usher even during the week. However, drawing lots is portions of food is permitted on a weekday only if one does not intend to set up the lottery as a way to win a large portion instead of a small one. Rishum kubia, because this is considered gambling, which is prohibited at all times. Okay. So, Umatilin chalashim al hakachim yontif, Kohanim may cast lots for portions of meat from offerings that were brought on Yontif. Avalo al hamanus. But however, they may not cast lots for portions of meat from offerings brought on for the previous day, if they could have done so before Yontif. Okay, very cool. As an intro to the next Mishnah, Mishnah Gimel, Shaya Navi tells us regarding Shabbos to refrain from pursuing your affairs and speaking words. So the phrase between your affairs, it requires a person to avoid engaging in his weekday activities, even if no malacha is involved. For this reason, the Chachamim asked the person to participate in commercial transactions, to go to his field to see what work it will require on Shabbos, or to space of business, or to read documents that pertain to business. The phrase "v'davar," speaking words, answers even the discussion of prohibited matters. Therefore, one may not speak about business affairs, make financial calculations, or discuss plans to perform after Shabbos, an activity that's also in Shabbos itself. So here are some applications. Lo yish Mishnah Gimel. Lo yishkar adam poalim b'Shabbos. Person may not hire workers on Shabbos to work for him after Shabbos. So lo yomer adam l'chavir liskar lo poalim. And a person may not tell his friend to hire workers on Shabbos to work for him after Shabbos. He obviously can't go more than 2,000 amos from his place of residence to, outside the tchum, and if a person wants to engage in some activity outside the tchum as soon as possible after Shabbos, you'd have to go to the edge of that tchum and wait there until night falls. You could travel beyond the tchum the moment Shabbos ends. So sometimes it's mutter, sometimes it's aser. Ein makshichin al tchum liskopawalim laviperos. I mean, not wait at the tchum, at the boundary, until nightfall in order to hire workers as soon as Shabbos is over, or in order to bring back fruit as soon as possible after Shabbos. Since hiring workers and picking fruit are also on Shabbos, it is forbidden to prepare for these activities by waiting at the boundary. But he may wait at the boundary, at the tchum, until nightfall in order to guard his property after Shabbos, because guarding is mutter on Shabbos, and he may bring back food in his hand. You can guard your property on Shabbos. You can't work it, but you can guard it. Klal Amar Abishol said a rule. Kol shani zakai amirasa rashai ani lahashti chalav. Any activity that I'm allowed to discuss, I am permitted to wait at the boundary until nightfall in order to perform it. It's accepted by, it's an accepted law that one may discuss doing also work after Shabbos for the sake of a mitzvah. Like, for example, if there's a mace mitzvah and you make a coffin and tachrichem for a corpse, which you can't do on Shabbos, but it's a mace mitzvah, then you have to, it was just a mace, not just, it's a mace mitzvah. But someone was nifter on Shabbos, chas v'shalom, and they didn't make a coffin and tachrichem for the person, so it may not, you can't do that on Shabbos. You can have a conversation about it because it's for a mitzvah after Shabbos. Machshichin al hatchum, mishnadal machshichin al hatchum, the pakeach al iske kala. We may wait at the boundary until nightfall to attend to the needs of a bride after Shabbos. Well, iske hameis l'havilo aron v'tachrichin, or to attend to the needs of a deceased person after Shabbos. For example, to bring a coffin or tachrichin for him. Nachri shehevi chalilim b'Shabbos. If a non-Jew brought flutes, which were used back in the day to play sad music at Jewish funerals, on Shabbos, he brought them on Shabbos from outside the boundary. Lo yispa behem yisrael. Then a Jew may not arouse grief for the nifter through playing them at a funeral that is held after Shabbos, because they're brought in before on Shabbos, and that's a problem. Ella even came by this prohibition. This prohibition holds unless it is known that the flutes came from a nearby town, in which case they can be used for a funeral after Shabbos, because they did not violate the Shabbos. Because if they're in the Tchum and they were brought on Shabbos, then they were brought within the Tchum, and that would not be a problem to use on Shabbos. Also, similarly, different topic, but like if you're inviting Shabbos guests for Shabbos, and some of them are not yet Shomer Shabbos, they want to drive to your place on Shabbos. So really, you're supposed to have a place for people to sleep, and they can decide how they want to get there, if they want to stay till Shabbos or not. Um, but 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 halacha, it gets a lot less complicated when the person's coming within the tchum than when they're coming from outside the tchum. Um, but that's again for shaila for a different time. Also, though, Aaron, back to our topic. Also, though, Aaron chafro lo kever. If non-Jews made a coffin for another non-Jew or dug a grave for him on Shabbos, again, this is all done by a non-Jew for a non-Jew. Yikare by Yisrael, then a Jew may be buried in it immediately after Shabbos, since the work was not specifically done for a Jew. However, but if the work was done for a Jew and it was done publicly, then that Jew who is nifter on Shabbos may never be buried in it at all, since in this case it was known to the public that the coffin or grave were made in violation of Shabbos. It would be degrading for that Jew, that particular person, to ever be buried in it. If it was someone else was nifter, or it was a couple of days later, next week, then that would be fine with that. For that particular person, it's a big problem. Okay, Mishnah Hey. That's the last Mishnah of this Perek. Osin Kod Sarchi Ames. We may attend to all the needs of the deceased on Shabbos. Sachin Madichin, so we may anoint him with oil and rinse him with water. Provided that we do not move any of his limbs, because a mace, a dead body, is muksa, and moving even part of it is usher on Shabbos. So even though you can't move it, it is permitted to touch the mace, as one may touch an object that is muksa, as long as one doesn't move it. Touching a muksa item is forbidden only if it is round, because an egg, because it's going to roll. In this case, because it's going to roll. Otherwise, if it's a person, for example, you can touch the mace, but you cannot move it. Shomtin es hakar mitakta matilan oso alacho. We may pull the mattress out from under him, thereby laying him on the sand below. When someone pulls out the mattress, he causes the corpse to end up on the sandy ground beneath the mattress. That was before they had floors. But you cannot pick up the corpse and place it on the ground, again, because then you're actually moving the mace. So you're putting him on the ground, so that he will not decompose as a result of the warm mattress, but will remain moist. Koshrim as halechi, if his mouth is falling open, you can tie something around the jaw. Lo shiyala ela shelo yosef, not so tightly that the jaw will rise and close the mouth, since that's us to move any part of the body, but only so that the jaw will stay in place and not continue to drop. Fascinating Mishnah. Similarly, if a ceiling beam broke, we may support it with a bench or the sideboards of a bed. Not to let it will rise, because putting the beam back in place would violate the malacha of building, but only so that it will stay in place and not continue to fall. And amsin as sames for Shabbos, we may not close the eyes of the nifter on Shabbos, because it is forbidden, again, to move any part of him, as taught above. Lo b'chol emisias nefesh. We may not close the eyes of a dying person even on a weekday when his soul is close to departing, because at that point, even the slightest movement of his body will shorten his life. Someone who does close the eyes of a dying person when the soul is close to departing, is a rotseach, is a murderer. That's a really somber way to end off a parak, I gotta tell you. Listen, maybe we rid ourselves of Nisan the world, maybe see the destruction of the Satan and the Yitzhara, and maybe see the coming of Mashiach Sekinu, but maybe Menu, Amen, Mamash. Okay. Have a wonderful Shabbos. We will finish off the Masechta on Sunday at in the morning. Probably, I'm not sure, maybe 9 o'clock, let's see. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Shabbos.